What's up, guys? This is Ray from the Just a Bit Outside Baseball Softball Podcast. And before we get to the show, we wanted to give a special shout out to all of our sponsors. Hit Factory Athletics. Make sure to check these guys out. The one thing I like about this brand is it was created by a ball player for ball players, and it's not going to be the bright neon colors and the crazy designs that's out there today. So if you're looking for a nice, clean, classic look, this is definitely the brand for you. So make sure to go to hitfactoryathletics.com, check out all their apparel, their streetwear, their training aids, their accessories. They have it all. The other thing I like about their apparel is you can wear it to the office, to school, to the field, or you can wear it out to dinner on a Friday night. So make sure you check them out, hitfactoryathletics.com. Our next sponsor of the show is Bip Brand. The thing about these guys is it is the hitters brand. So if you can swing it or you think you can swing it, you need to get yourself into a pair of Bip custom pro grade batting gloves. They have your stock models, but the one thing they're doing specifically for us, this show right here, is if you email them at info@bip.com and use the promo code outside21, your team will get a free custom mock-up. Your colors, your logo, your brand on your hands in the batter's box and making a statement. Make sure to get at them, info@bip.com, outside21, free custom mock-up. Use the same promo code to save 20% off your team order. And last but not least, Raised decals. Get rid of that flat, ugly sticker on the front of your helmets and get what the pros and top colleges are using around the country. Raised decals literally make your decal stand out. They are 3D custom pro grade decals to make your helmets stand out, shine, makes your teams know who you are when you're rounding the bases. Make sure you check all three of our sponsors out at factoryathletics.com, at bip.com, and at raiseddecals.com. On all three platforms, make sure you use the promo code outside21 to save you some money. Our guest of the show this week was pitching coach from Greeley, Colorado at University High School, Jeremy Whitman. Coach Whitman and I sat down. We talked a lot of topics. We talked pitching. We talked the state of baseball. We talked college sports. We talked a lot of different things. So make sure you check it out. And here's the show. All right, guys, what's going on? This is Ray from the Just a Bit Outside podcast. So one of the things that we wanted to start, because this show is about helping amateur baseball and softball players get to where they want to go. So we wanted to do a new kind of a segment with a featured athlete on every episode. We might have one or two. So the idea behind it is simply to let these guys come on or girls come on and basically talk about what makes them attractive, like what makes them presentable to college coaches. And I think a big thing nowadays is college coaches want to hear the kids talk. They don't want to so much hear the parents talk. So I think this opportunity will go a long way for them to talk about who they are, what they want to do, and the way they feel about themselves and what they can bring to your program. So to kick things off, we are going to start with Nicholas Allen. Nick is a catcher out of the state of Ohio. He goes to Colerain High School. So Nick, how you doing tonight?
Good. Happy to be on, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
pretty excited.
So one of our sponsors, Hit Factory Athletics, kind of liked this. They retweeted it. And I think it was Dad. Was it Dad that kind of tagged you in this?
Yes, sir. So we're big buddies with Mitch. We're very familiar with the Hit Factory brand. So I seen it and then we talked about it and he retweeted it out. And I was like, I was already planning on it before he even retweeted. I was pretty excited about it.
It was really, yes. So like I said, Hit Factory Athletics, they're a sponsor of the show. They were our very first sponsor. So we're very excited about that. So Nick, I went to your PBR, your prep baseball report. You are a graduating senior 2021. You are a catcher. Your secondary position is outfield. 5'11", 165, bats right, throws right. So obviously, are you looking to go into college as a catcher? Is that the
Yes,
main
sir.
position you're looking to play?
Yes, sir. I have a very strong passion for catching.
And I've watched a couple of your videos. It looks like you can block up pitches pretty well. You can square up balls.
Yes,
Uh,
sir. It's
you, is that something like out of everything in your game? What do you pride yourself on most when you're behind the plate?
my receiving, 100%. I
Mhm.
spent hours on hours watching the catching guide, a good row catching, and just listening to different guys like Austin Hedges catch. I mean, in my backyard, I have a 2017 Golden Glover of Tucker Barnhart. He's another great receiver. That's just one thing I loved watching, and it's just looks like an art.
Is there somebody that you try to imitate and not like be, but is there someone that if you could say, like, if I could get to that level of framing pitches and blocking pitches and calling a game, like who stands out in your mind?
For calling games, I love watching Austin Hedges. All around, he's a great athlete. He came up through high school as a freak, but for receiving, I love watching Tucker. I mean, just all around, he's just a great athlete. Worked on everything that he could have thought of, and at the end of the day, he just showed that even in Cincinnati, we're always not known for the baseball, but we have some pretty solid catchers, and he's the guy to watch.
So your showcase team is the Durham Bulls.
Yes, sir.
What's some couple of the events you guys play? Perfect Game. You guys play Prospect Wire. What do you guys play?
We play a little bit of Perfect Game. We went to the WWBA down in Georgia, and then we were at a PBR at Lake Point, Georgia, and in Georgia as well. So we do a little bit of traveling, and we stick mostly to PBR and Perfect Game.
And is that who you're playing for in the fall?
Yes, sir.
Do they already have a schedule out?
Yes, sir. We're looking to go to Grand Park out in Indiana and back down to Fort Myers, Florida.
Okay. Is that a bigger tournament down in Florida?
Yes, sir. It's kind of the place to be especially in this whole crisis situation. Just Florida right now is kind of the destination we're looking for.
And do you know what the dates of that tournament are?
Yes, sir. We don't have an idea yet.
Don't even know yet. Okay. So when we talk going on to college, is there, I don't want to say a dream school, but if you had to assess yourself, would you say you're a Division I talent? Are you a Division II talent? Are you a D3 guy?
All in all, I feel like I'm just a solid baseball player. I can play it. I feel like I could play Division I baseball if that was my fit, but I think I could play any type of baseball. Really, I feel like I have the bearings enough to play Division I baseball, Division II baseball. I'm not really picky. I just feel like if you have a solid program, then I feel like that's kind of what I'm looking for.
I love that answer. I love the fact that you said, I just believe in my ability and my game, and I don't have a certain school. I don't have a certain level. I'm looking for an opportunity. So that already speaks volumes to me. Are you looking to get out of the Midwest? Are you looking to go more West Coast, or are you just looking for an opportunity? Like, is there
I'm just looking for an opportunity to play.
An opportunity to play.
Yes, sir.
As far as a major, what are you looking to major in?
Really looking to major in construction management. I really like working with my hands. Engineering was another good one, but I really like construction management's that's where I really wanted to go after into my college career.
So I'm assuming if you have a 3.9 GPA, you want to work in construction management. I'm assuming you enjoy mathematics and science.
Yes, sir. I'm a big fan of science. Mathematics, I like mathematics because especially in the construction work, it's a lot simpler math than what you would see in high school, especially when you're taking higher level classes. It's definitely a simpler math that I really enjoy. I just really like working with my hands. So it kind of just goes hand in hand.
Boom, sold. Smart kid, captain behind the plate, love math, love science, can do it. So I'm already sold on that. I just want to have a conversation about that. So if you had to go a JUCO route, doesn't bother you?
No, sir, not at all. I mean, being 165 pounds, do I feel like when I go to these perfect games, of course you'll see the catchers who are 5'11", but they're 210 or 190. I believe I'm a 165 who plays like he's 200 pounds. I play like I'm the 6'8" Aaron Judge that you see or the Mike Trouts because that's my level of play. I just feel like I go in very intensely. Like I can play like that guy, but at the same time, going JUCO gives me room to grow. It gives me 2 years to really build up weight. Those guys, JUCO baseball knows how to get it done. So they can definitely show more outlets and more opportunities. You can go straight out to the big leagues, or you can go back to college. But I love the idea of playing big league ball right out of JUCO. But I'm really looking forward to an education, because I'm scared, say something happens, I have something to fall back on. I don't want to be the guy who just signs for a big bonus, but then once he gets hurt or he's not the guy they're looking for, he has nowhere to go. He has nothing to fall back on.
Mm. And up until this point, going into your senior year, have you had any attention from any schools? And if so, what schools have talked to you a little bit?
Yes, sir. I've had a little bit of attention from Lincoln Memorial down in Tennessee, and big talk with Eastern Michigan right now. We go back and forth a little bit, but other than that, no offers or anything. Just looking for the right opportunity, to be honest with you.
And what's that opportunity? When you say the right opportunity, like what's that opportunity?
To go into a school with my major, especially, and also go into a school that I feel like I would fit in and can be the captain, like be that guy that people can look to, and be that guy who knows, like got a little good head on their shoulders of they know what to do in the right situation, and they're not just there to say go party or go to a big school just to see a lot of people. Like I'm a big social butterfly in the fact that I can go to a big city school and fit in with all the people because I like to talk, but at the same time I can go to the smaller school route, and then I can still adjust and I can reassess the situation once I'm there.
So when we talk, you already said you pride yourself on framing pitches and blocking pitches. Like I said, I watched a video of you. It seems like you do that very well. There's a couple videos you posted where pitches I don't even know how you even put a body in front of, because whoever was throwing completely spiked the ball on you. Does your teams that you play for, your high school coach, your travel coach, do you get to call your own game? And is that something you pride yourself on? Is that something you feel comfortable with, is calling pitches and understanding your pitchers and understanding counts and understanding situations?
Yes, sir. So going into my junior year, like my junior summer, I had a really bad, like a really troubling time of calling pitches and understanding, recognizing pitchers, and all in all slowing the game down. So going into my junior year, my really main focus was I'm going to find a way to slow everything down and find the simplistic and what works. So like simplistic of calling pitches, I just listened. I probably follow more pitching channels on Instagram or pages than I do catching, because I love to see pitching coaches. Because also you have to understand he's a player. Like, what does he have confidence in? That's what I take pride in. Like, hey, I know you're confident. This is your out pitch. We're going to use that. We're not going to shy you away into, hey, maybe you need to work on something. Let's throw a little breaking ball action, rather than, if you're confident with this, let's go this route. If you get somebody hits a bomb off you, it kind of happens. It's baseball. Like, so going into that, I really dialed in on pitch calling. So like when in the high school level, yes, sir, I get to call my game a little bit, especially this summer I did too, because it's definitely still growing, but I let the coaches also give me suggestions, because in all, I'm just a suggestion. The pitcher doesn't have to call anything. I throw it down. He gets to do whatever he wants, but at the same time, he's hearing it from me, and then he might be also hearing it from the coach. So it gives him a little bit of leeway, but it also helps me learn what he likes and what the coach likes. And we just all work together and try to find that perfect harmony to give him the success.
So when you're assessing an at-bat, and it's like your first time through the order, and it's a team you haven't played, it's not like a high school season, someone you haven't really seen. While you're calling pitches, are you looking at the batter's feet? Are you looking at hands? Are you looking at where they are in the box? Like how do you approach a first time, or are you not even worried about that? You're going off of what your pitcher feels comfortable with, what we like to attack with, and we're going to roll with that.
Yes, sir. So all in all, when I'll start, say I have a game at 8:00 in the morning, I'll talk with my pitcher probably an hour before and say, hey, you just woke up, what's feeling comfortable, what's feeling like you can dial this in. And then first pitch of the game we already talked about, and then I will immediately assess off the first pitch. As soon as a guy gets in the box, I look at his feet, look at his hands. If he's setting up in the box, maybe going to be late if my guy's humming a little bit. If he's set up really inside, then I know I'm going to bust him back inside, because maybe he can't get his hands around that fast. That's why he sits out there, because he wants that outside pitch. There's exceptions here and there, but really I model off the hitters. Like, everybody can hit a fastball sometimes. So like if my guy can't really get it over that day, if he's leaving it right down the middle, then I'm immediately judging this batter. What's he doing? What's it like? If I don't know him at all, I see where his feet are, see where his hands are. That's where we're going to work. Like I'm big on reading hitters. And also I don't think a lot of people understand is like, also when you're in the box, you're going through adjustments. Like if I'm set up and bam, I'm late on this guy, mentally, like I have to make an adjustment while I'm in the box. So me catching, I have to also take that into consideration. If this kid just fouled this ball off right behind me, he's on time. I know he's on time. We got to mix it up or I'm going to get probably a worse result. This kid's probably going to hit a ball really hard or something not good happens. So big on watching guys. I feel like it's another thing I can kind of look off of. So I spend a lot of time in the box, so I kind of think like hitters. Like I think like a hitter does too. I'm like, all right, if I was just missed this guy, I know I'm going to start a little bit sooner. So come in with the breaking ball action a little bit, let him lose his base, maybe he swings and misses, weak contact. Either way, that's a good payday.
Mm-hmm. When I was growing up, we had a pitching coach that always taught us, you're going to go throw fastball in, you're going to go off speed away. Do you kind of share the similar mindset? I'm going to pound you in and then I'm going to work away? Or if I have a guy 0-2 and let's say he's timed a fastball, am I going to try, like, are you more likely to try to go fastball in if he's on time, or we're going to go in on his hands, or we're going to go fastball away and try to bite a little bit farther out? We're going to go 2 ball lengths out, or we're going to go throw something down the dirt away?
Well, I'm a big fan of throwing it down in the dirt because my pitchers know me pretty well. They know I can get that ball, especially that ball, maybe 2 balls off the plate. I can also bring that ball back inside. I really hate the inside corner because we're 16, 17 years old. 90% of the time when you throw the stick inside, he's just going to throw right down the middle. Mm-hmm. I've happened to be way too many times. So, I mean, I always adjust based on the hitter, but at the end of the day, I'm trying to work him away. If I throw him inside, it's most likely going to be down the middle of the plate. You're at a 0-2 count. You're expecting the worst. Might as well give him the worst.
And when you say it's going to be down the middle, is that because majority of kids that are trying to grow up and kind of hone in on their own pitching ability, I'm scared of hitting him, so I'm scared to throw in?
Mainly that is what it is. There are a lot of kids that are like, man, I don't like, then they'll start thinking too. That's why a lot of guys kind of shy away from the inside pitch because mentally they're like, man, I really don't want to hit him. And I really don't want to throw it right down the middle. I'm going to really try to throw it on this inside corner and ends up hitting the guy, or he leaves it right down the middle. So yeah, that's at the end of the day, it comes down to like maturity of the pitcher. If I have a 17-year-old kid still maybe going to a very big D1, at that point you're still looking away. Like finding a 17-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid that dots it up inside, it's harder to come by than I think a lot of people think.
I think you have a very mature approach from behind the plate for only being a kid in high school as well. You know, the fact that you are assessing all those things, you're taking into consideration what your coaches are thinking, your pitcher's thinking, you're assessing the at-bat, you're assessing the batter itself. Just talking to you, I mean, you have a very mature approach about it behind the plate. So it seems like you have a pretty level head and a good idea of what's going on. So do you train with anyone specifically? Like, do you have like a catching coach? Do you have a hitting coach?
Yes, sir. I do have I work with my head coach, Lance Durham. He's my hitting coach. But when it comes to catching, man, I'm just a sponge. Like over this new upcoming, or my old season, say because it's summer is over, I had Ty Duvall. He was a Vandy catcher. He's just an amazing guy to listen to. Being in the dugout every single day and listening to this guy, you just almost, let's be honest, that's everybody's dream. Play at Vanderbilt. I mean, playing Vandy baseball, you're looking at a guy who literally lived your dream. You try to almost imitate the way the guy walks, how he breathes. I mean, I don't even know how many questions I've asked that guy. I mean, was he able to show me a lot of catching stuff in between games? For sure, 100%. But mentally, I just absolutely dove in on the guy. I credit a lot of my success to him. I mean, he taught me a good approach. He taught me how to do certain things the right way, how to think of certain good and brilliant pitch situations that equal success, receiving. And then I also worked with Jaron Ryanflesh. He's another guy. He's a local guy who went to Ball State. great another catching mind. I mean, he taught me to slow it down. He's easy to understand. You really helped me slow the game down. And then building off of Ty, I mean, I feel blessed because a lot of kids will never get that opportunity, but I'm super blessed that I got that opportunity. And I feel like I took full advantage of it because later down the road, everything he said, it worked. Like I just absorbed it and tried to put it back into my game, and whatever happened happened. And 90% of the time it's good.
So to wrap this up, Nick, why you? Why should coaches want to have a conversation with you? Why should I offer you? What are you going to bring to the table that separates you from anyone else?
I think a lot of what separates me from everybody else is I've never met a kid who outworked me. I've never met a kid who is mentally as strong as me. I've never met a kid who has as big as a heart as I do. I mean, the first person to give you the shirt off my back, and I'm the first person to ask you if you're all right, if you need somebody to talk to, because I feel like especially in baseball, that's really missed out on. I feel like a lot of people just turn a lot of people away. Instead, I feel like I'm the leader, that I can be the sternness that I need, but at the same time, I can show the guys like, hey, I'm human too. I make mistakes the same as everybody else, but just this is the correct way to go about them, or is this the wrong way to go about them? That's just, I feel like I carry a very leadership attitude towards a lot of kids, and especially pitchers on the field. I feel like I have a great leadership on the field because I'll know when to get on you, but at the same time, I'll know when you need to assess yourself, let alone somebody else. You already got coach on you, mom and dad on you. The last person you need is the guy behind the dish on you. Don't get me wrong. Is it needed sometimes? 100%. But a lot of the time, you just need to sit back, let coach handle it, and then you talk to him like, hey, what do we think? What's bugging you today? Let's talk about it. So then when you go back out there, bam, we're refreshed. We're ready to go. That's just something I feel like I do very well.
Nick, like I said, you're very mature for the way you talk, man. So if you are a coach and you want to get in contact with Nick Allen, his information is going to be in the link. Nick, where can coaches contact you right now, though, just in case they don't go to the link? What's your Twitter? How do you want them to get a hold of you?
So I can my phone number is in my Instagram at Bubba Allen 2542. Same thing for Twitter. I left them pretty easy for both. My number's in both. I love the contact. My email is in both. I'm big in email. I send a lot of emails out. So that's just two very easy ways to get in touch with me. Do you have
a skills tape? Like, do you have a whole tape to send out if a coach contacts you and wanted some film?
Yes, sir. I have a separate hitting and catching one.
All right.
So
Nick,
I'm always ready.
Nick, thank you so much for your time, man. Best of luck. The fact that you carry a 3.9 GPA, you love science, you love math, you assess the game. The thing that I really like about you that I took away from this conversation is that you're hungry and that you are a sponge, and you're willing to have a conversation with anyone that wants to have it, and you're willing to take in their information, assess it, and then apply it to your own game. That's huge, and continue on your path. Best of luck to you. I hope you find that opportunity with whatever school. So again, Nick Allen from Cincinnati, Ohio, Colerain High School, 2021 grad, catcher, 5'11", bats right, throws right. Get at him. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
What do you want to talk about? I'll leave it to you. I know we talked about big school, small school. We don't try to do like an interview. We just try to make it a conversation, and wherever it kind of leads us, it kind of goes. What do you want to talk about first?
We were just messaging back and forth about the big school, small school differences. And it's been one of the hardest things for me to make an adjustment as a coach. I've come from, big programs, being out in Arizona, coming up in a large program. And when I started coaching, I actually got my start at Corona, working for Dave Webb in a summer program. And I got the opportunity after I was done playing to help run their lower level for the summer. And, you've got so many kids coming out there. And being here in Colorado, we're at the 3A level. It's about 600 kids total in our school. My kids play everything under the sun. We have to. It's not the specialization that you have, especially seeing it in Arizona. I'm sure that you guys see how kids play one sport for the most part. Right. And out here, we can't. Mm-hmm. We can't survive with that. All my kids are playing at least 2 sports. I got a lot of 3-sport athletes. It's great to see, but it makes it tough on our development.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, I've been at both schools. I've been at both. I've been at schools that are 5A, 6A, where you do have the kids where I just play baseball and that's what I play. You have very few that – you have some that are like, I play football and during football season, that's what I'm going to go do, and you won't see them until football's over. You might have one that plays basketball. But for the majority, your baseball team sticks around all year long, and that's what those do. I've also been at schools where they've been a 3A and kind of like you, where it's hard to build a program that wins because these kids play football. And from football, they either go wrestle and then they go into basketball. And then finally during the spring, you get them for baseball, and it's like you have 2 weeks and you're playing your first game.
Yeah, and so we even have the overlap.
And then, I mean, it's like – and I think it's hard – because we had Desert Ridge High School's coach on, Coach Ponce, and he said he has a couple kids that play soccer and they play football and they're athletic, and he encourages that because they're athletes. And as a coach, like, you don't want to be the guy that's like, you're not going to, or you're not going to play for me. And I think we've all been there. I know my brother was kind of faced with that, where it's like, you're either going to do this or you're going to do that, but you're not going to do both. And you kind of put that kid in a situation where it's like, well, I want to do both. I want to try both. I had a kid I didn't have a kid. When I was at Mesa High my sophomore year, our basketball team won the boys 5A state championship, and our starting catcher played basketball. And basically the head coach at the time basically told him, look, you're the starting catcher and you're either going to play baseball and be here, or you're going to play basketball. But just know if you choose basketball, like, you're not going to start. So he knew that he wasn't a starter for the basketball team. So he opted to go to baseball. And the kid's like, dude, like, we didn't even make the state tournament my senior year for baseball. I could have ended my senior year with a state championship basketball ring and had some minutes. And I think as a kid, you kind of feel robbed of that. You feel robbed of an opportunity, because most of those kids, like, aren't going to go on to play the second sport. They just enjoy playing for the opportunity. So as a coach, I'm sure it's hard to be like, you're not going to do this, or you make the kid pick.
Yeah. And we've got so many kids that, like I said, at the small school that are starting wide receivers on the football team. And then they're, in the starting 5 on the basketball team. And then I'm expecting them to come out from day one and be my starting left fielder, my starting right fielder. And being a pitching guy, it makes it even tougher because, we have our routines that we set before the season starts and trying to get arms in shape. Our season is so condensed because of weather as well. We don't get the opportunity to go, longer in the year in comparison to Arizona, California, Texas. We're pretty condensed. We start late February, but we might not see our field for a while. We got hit hard last year. We had what they called a bomb cyclone snowstorm that basically kicked us off our field for,
I remember that.
A week and a half plus. We didn't see our field. There was a 4-foot high snowbank in my first base dugout. And I moved to Colorado, they say, for baseball. It wasn't exactly, something you expected to have to deal with.
Yeah.
So it was just crazy.
And I think too, like, then you run into the situation where obviously, like, if you work at the school and it's a small school like that, all those coaches know each other. So then you run into the predicament where if you put that kid in a situation to pick, now you start having other staff members mad at you because you're like, well, why'd you tell him that? Why'd you tell him you can't attend my thing? And I just think coaching at a smaller school, I feel like there's opportunity, but it's very, like, if you're someone, a newer coach that took a smaller job because no bigger school would give you that head coaching opportunity, because you got to start somewhere. If your goal is to build a program, to show, like, I can build a program, I can establish a program, I can run a program, and we win, I think that's very hard to do at a lower level school because you don't have the kids all the time. You don't have a fall program. You don't have a summer program. Because, and that's the thing too, like, once those kids get done with spring baseball, spring football starts.
Yep, and they're right back into basketball, open gym in the summer and playing all over the place.
I mean, like, most high school coaches, I mean, not all of them, but most, if you're the football coach, you probably coach track. So you convince all those guys that play football, hey, you're going to come run track for me because it's
Or
going
your offensive linemen are wrestling.
Yeah.
And I remember that growing up. I tried to play 1 year of football, and then I was kind of done with that, knowing that my time was next door on the baseball field. So I love seeing.
Go ahead.
I love seeing the multi-sport athletes because you want those athletic kids. You want those kids who can get out there and flat run and everything. But it's that hard in the development. It really is.
And I think that's the thing too, is I think there's very few kids that are so athletic that I can basically show up and I'm still better than the majority. And I think there's some where obviously I have enough athleticism where you can throw me in and I can do something to contribute. But I think just the lower level school, it just goes back to, it's hard to build a program because you're not seeing those guys, but like you just said, like you play all these sports, so you're athletic and you're building upon your athleticism, but baseball is kind of a different breed where football, you might not know what's going on, but if you're big and physical, I can send you out and tell you to go hit somebody. If you're not doing something technical wise in baseball, you're going to be found out very quick.
Catching up to a 90-mile-an-hour fastball is gonna show up real fast.
Yeah.
Ray, are you ready?
I thought you were already recording.
I wasn't intending on being on the show.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right. I'm
not going to do the whole
here.
show because we're going to do like the other thing. So I'm just going to pick up the conversation.
That's fine. We can keep this in. I just wasn't intending on being on the show. So if you want to keep this in, that's fine.
We can just edit it. We can just edit it and add it in. So yeah.
All right.
So I think it was funny when you first messaged me and you said, I only saw university. So I thought you were at a school. And obviously this because when I asked you, I'm like, oh, do you come down here and recruit in Arizona? Since you said you had ties to Corona del Sol, you were at Central. And you said, no, I just have homegrown kids. And I thought, oh, he only recruits kids from Colorado. That's an interesting tactic. And then finally I asked that and you were like, no, I coach at a high school and it's University High School in Greeley, Colorado.
Yep.
You guys were back-to-back state champions in your division, 18-19. Did you guys win those titles with the same group or did you have a whole new set year 2 in 2019?
It was a lot of the same kids. There were, I would say we had 4 or 5 seniors that graduated from the first team to the second, but there were a lot of the same kids. We had the state player of the year in 2018 and he graduated. And then 2019 we had the state player of the year as well. The first one was a position player and I actually wasn't with the program in that first season. I've got to know everything from that, but Coach Miller, our head coach, that was his first year as well, the first state championship. And they had a player by the name of Grayson Swanson who just flat swung it for them, led the state in almost every category. And he was player of the year, went on to is playing in college at this point. They had a couple arms, but a lot of the pitching was still there. That's what we had, a solid starting core on the mound. One was the player of the year and another was another kid. Both of them were down at Otero Junior College at this point, pitching for the Rattlers down there. So we had a great core, and we still even had guys who were coming back that had played. We had some young players on that first state championship team.
And do you think, like, when you look at that team with some of the guys that left, when you compare baseball, since you've grew up in Arizona and now moved to Colorado, when you compare baseball in high school, would that state championship team, could they come down here and compete with the big boys down here in the 6A and have a fighting chance to play a Hamilton or a Corona or a Scottsdale Horizon or a Shap?
I think they would stand a chance. Yeah. It's tough. going down there and seeing the amount of ball they play. We don't get to play that much, but these kids could flat play. There's no doubt in my mind. We were sound all the way around. On the mound, we had great starting pitching. We hit the ball really well. We had guys who could run. Defensively, we were strong. I feel like especially seeing in Colorado, seeing from the 3A to the 5A, we could hang with anybody out there. We could definitely come down there and hold our own.
Mm. And do you think, like, when you look at teams that win titles or teams that are good every year, obviously you have the teams that, they have everything. They can play defense. They have arms. They can swing it. They're going to capitalize on every mistake you make. You got to minimize the mistakes that you make. When you look at a high school program, what's one thing, like, you feel like is always going to be there? Like, if your pitching is down, like, what do you feel is like the most important element to being a good, respected team year after year? If you had to take one element out, like, could you still win? Like, obviously you can put up one run, and if you have lights out pitching and arms and you could play defense, you're going to win some ball games. So I know the answer is like, well, you got to have the all-rounded team, but that it's not always going to be there, And so I guess my question is, would you rather take a great pitching staff or a lineup that 1 through 9 is just going to put it on you?
I've been on both sides of that, where you had a lights out staff and couldn't score runs. And if you can go and I feel like if you can go and bang the ball with anybody out there, you're going to win games. It might be putting up a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to win. But if you can go and bang the ball around, you hopefully can throw enough strikes, because hitters are going to get themselves out. We know that just seeing, it's an old adage, it's a game of failure. But I hate saying that sometimes, but it is. You're gonna get out. The thing that would drive me nuts in that aspect is if you can't throw strikes. If you can get up there and throw strikes and not hurt yourself, and you can go out and hit the ball, even if you're giving up hits and runs, you're still going to win ball games, I feel.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, like, as a pitching coach, is it hard for you to sit back when your pitcher's out there and he's just dealing inning after inning after inning, and your offense cannot start a thing? Like, does that have to come from you to motivate a dugout to be like, pardon my French, but like, can you guys get off your ass and do something? Because I have a guy out there right now who's just pumping and shoving, and do something to contribute to help him out. Does that come from a coach, or does that, at that point, does that have to come from a player on that team that's a respected leader, or even the guy that's out there like pitching? Like, I'm working my butt off, do something, push a run across, find a way to do it.
If I see that from my pitcher, I know that kid's a leader. I've been in that situation before where that kid, I wouldn't consider one of my dugout leaders, but he came up and he was so frustrated that he got his team together and basically goes off on him. Come on, I'm working my butt off out here. You guys got to give me something. And at that point, I think those players respect that guy more and are going to work even harder. Because if I say it, if I get up there and scream and yell, then that's not the type of coach that I am. But if I'm doing it, they'd be like, oh, whatever. I feel like they blow you off at times. They think that's kind of your job, to be up there screaming, yelling, even if that's not who you are. And if it's one of their own doing that, it's a kind of a different perspective, and they'll fight harder for their brother there. That's how I always looked at it. I'd rather go out and, work my butt off for the guy next to me rather than doing it for the coach. That's the teams that you always want to have that'll work, lay it on the line for each other, not worrying about what the coach is going to say.
Yeah. And do you think you've been in both worlds. You've been at the JUCO level with Central, and now you're a high school coach. Do you think it's like I know it's like a different animal, coaching college and coaching high school, but do you think like it's not easier to coach, but do you think it's easier to motivate guys at the college level? Because like, if you didn't want to play baseball, you wouldn't be playing college baseball. Like, you're here for a purpose. Now, whether you're pissed off because you're not playing, that's a different story. But do you think it's a little bit harder? Like, it's harder to coach high school because you have the kid that just wants to be a part of it, or it just gives them something to do. So they don't have to go get a job bagging groceries, and I'm not at home and I get to hang out with my buddies. And
yeah. I think you're spot on there, that it is tougher to motivate those high school kids sometimes, because a lot of them, we only get a certain amount of kids out. We can't get rid of some. Sometimes we've had that where we haven't cut kids. And at the college level, you don't perform, you're not coming back that next year.
Mhm.
And I've seen that when I was actually at Yavapai.
Yavapai.
And no, that is what. And we had kids that were like that. My roommate didn't come back, and it hurts you as a friend, but you're sitting there for your team.
Mhm.
So you spend more time, especially the JUCO level. They're closer than family to you. You're in and out. I talk to the JUCO guys more than some of my family. So still to this day.
And I think we've talked about this endlessly with multiple people that we've had on the show. And when we had Travis Buck on, we're coach now at Boise State, unfortunately, one of the things he said that he had a hard transition into coaching college was the guys that were coming in, they looked for him to always tell them what they should be doing. And it was like, well, what do you want from me? Like, what are you looking for? And it's like, they would do something and look. And it's like, you want me to give you a thumbs up, or do you want me to critique you after everything? And his thing was just like, you have to learn how to play, like think for yourself. And I think when you look at society today, it's very tough for kids. And you're a school teacher. I'm a school teacher. I have kids where, like, if I did not do the work with them, they would do nothing on a daily basis.
Yep, I see that everywhere.
Why do you not have any drive? Like, where's your motivation? And I think you see that in coaching, where as a coach, I think it's really hard to be hungrier than the kids that you're coaching. It's like, why do I want it more than you? You tell me you want to be here. You tell me you want to play. Then why aren't you playing?
Yeah, and you see it's the enabling all the way around. We see it if you working in education, it's the parents doing everything for them and things along that line. It's not always parents, but outside people doing stuff for them. And then, they've always got to get something out of it for themselves. Mm-hmm. Whereas there's got to be that motivation. There's got to be that internal motivation, that you want to get better at whatever it is, whether it's in the classroom. I've got a 9-year-old who's playing ball right now, and he wants to go out and hit, and he doesn't have to sit there and ask, is that all right? Is this all right? And, that's all I can ask for. I just want him to be out there and enjoy it, for one thing, mm-hmm. and not have to go out there. It's not me living through him. And, we see that at the baseball level. Excuse me.
I think that's you have the parents that were the best that never was, and they stand and tell you how great they were at their high school game. It's like, okay, well, you peaked in high school. And if you're peaking in high school, that's not where you want to peak. Yep. I'm not taking away from anyone who's a great high school standout athlete, but maybe there was a reason why you didn't move on. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you were good, but you weren't good enough to move on. And then you see these kids that are out there, and it's like, I've seen that. I've coached amateur baseball. It's like, do you want to be here, or do you want to be at home doing something else? Because I feel like you're forced to be out being here. And if you're being forced to be here, they're not having fun. They're not learning. And they just look at it as this is negative. Or you have the dad on the sideline that's losing his mind because they didn't swing at a pitch. And it's like, dude, it's 12-year-old baseball. Like, calm down. Like, they get a plastic U-chip ring at the end of this. If you win something, you get a plastic ring. It's not that big a deal. And I've had kids that, hey, we're going to move on and we're going to go play for so-and-so. And okay, that's cool. You're not good enough to play for them. You're just a filler. And then you run into those kids at tournaments and you're like, oh, look, we won. Yeah, of course. You play for a really good team. Did you play? Well, no. Oh, we're getting better then. You're getting better sitting on the bench, but you get to wear a cool jersey. You get to say you're a part of this team, and you get to hang on every other kid's accomplishments. You're not getting better. Your parents don't understand it. Yeah.
And the amount of money being dropped for something like that is incredible. And it's mind blowing.
And it blows my mind how many parents would exchange being on the best team that wins all the time just to say that their kid plays on the best team, and they can sit in the stand and say that as well, rather than putting their kid on a quality team with quality instructions, but they're able to play and get reps.
Yep.
And those are the parents in my mind that won't get it ever. And those are the kids that eventually will drop out. They'll get to high school baseball, and it's like, I really don't want to do this.
Too much work at that point.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to like our earlier conversation when we talk about coaching at a smaller school where, it's hard to build a program because these kids are playing so many other sports. I think a lot of parents too, they force their kids out of baseball because that's all they have them do. Like if they want to go play flag football, let them go play flag football. They want to go join math club, let them go join math club. Like baseball's always going to be there,
And we see those kids that, that's all they're doing for baseball. The arm injuries. That's one thing that, I tell kids that we have to take time off from throwing. At some point, you can't be on the mound. We've got kids who are playing, even out here in Colorado, playing as much as they can, and like, dude, you got to give it a rest. Yeah, we want to develop you as a pitcher, but you still have to have that time off. There's got to be some downtime to recuperate. You guys play all summer long, and all these tournaments you're going to, kids throwing a ton. Obviously everywhere is built in the pitch count rules, which is great. I'm glad that we've done something like that. I remember myself throwing 140 pitches in high school, and I was lucky that I didn't get hurt. Mm-hmm. And now you see kids that are throwing, every other day in these tournaments, and you just at 12 years old, and what's the long-term effects on these kids?
Well, I mean, and that's the thing that shows you how, if you're a parent, if you're a coach doing that, I would pull my kid from that team immediately. And if you're a parent that's sitting there in the stands letting your kid do that, you don't have a clue of what's going on.
For that plastic ring again.
Yeah, and you have pro guys. Tim Lincecum is like completely out of the league now. You only have so many bullets in the arm. Eventually, that's not going to happen. I listened to a whole podcast with CC Sabathia and John Lester, and like you have these pro guys that come up, and I'm throwing 98, I'm throwing 99 effortlessly. At some point, your body wears down, and it's not going to be there. And then you have to self-evaluate. You go through the emotion of like, well, maybe I'm not good anymore. Maybe my time is up. Or maybe you just have to reevaluate and say, I don't throw 98 anymore. I still throw 92, 93, and I got to change the way I pitch now. And I'm sure that's hard as a pro because you've always been the dude that can throw it by people. And it's always been there. And now it's not there, and I can't get that back. But now you go through that mental game, like I said, of like, maybe I'm not good enough, or I completely have to change the way I pitch. But on that day, you still have to believe that you throw 99. Like you can't think any less of your ability. And I think that's what separates yourself too. When you play at that level, and I tell people this all the time, people are like, well, they're arrogant. Anyone that does something good at a professional level, they have some arrogance to them. That's why they're there.
You have to be. Yep, you have to be. Even
if you're the fifth guy on a rotation on your start day, you feel like you're the guy.
It's that mental side of the game that you have to think that, especially as a pitcher getting up there, you have to think there's nobody better than me that day, or you're already defeated. That's what I try to enforce that with my pitchers is you've got to think you're better. I don't care who steps in that box. You've got to think you're better, and your stuff is going to get him out, or you're already done. I should just, find somebody else that day.
Do you think coaching high school, do you think kids are just born with that? Or you can't coach that. I mean, you could talk about it, you could preach it, but how do you get a kid to actually be about it? How do you get a kid to actually believe in their stuff and believe if I have failure, it is what it is. I'm moving on to the next pitch, and I'm not going to sit there and feel bad about it.
I think it comes from the coach as well. Yeah, it does come from inside that kid. He's got to have that mental strength. He can't be the meek walking up there and thinking that this guy's going to hit a line drive off me every time that I'm up here. He's got to have that inside him. But as a coach, I think you have to be able to, enforce that on your players, saying, no, there's somebody better than you. Even if you come out, that kid's struggling, and take a look at them and realize them to say, hey, I've got confidence in you. You've got to have confidence in yourself. I'm the one believing in you. Those pitches that I'm calling for you, I wouldn't be calling those if I didn't think you were going to be getting this guy out with those pitches. I'm not calling those pitches for you to, give up a double in the gap. I'm calling those because I think you're going to get this guy out. Mm-hmm. And it's the confidence that you have in your pitchers as well. Yeah, there's going to be some that I've had those pitchers who had no confidence. They had great stuff. They had no confidence. And they were, don't let me get this over the middle of the plate. It's like, no, I'm going to hit that spot on the outside half. And it's just that it is the confidence from both sides, the player and the coach. And, you have to reinforce that in everything you're doing with that kid a lot of times. You can see, from day one, that kid's mentality. When he walks onto the baseball field, you can tell who he is. If he thinks he's the best out there, you'll see that no matter how good that kid is. And it is reinforcing those teams. Our team this last season that we played, didn't think there was another team that was going to beat us. We went out day one, no matter who was on the mound, no matter who we were playing, and we played in a brutal league. It was top to bottom, just loaded. The 3 out of the final 4 of the state tournament were from our league, and the teams pitched well, the teams hit well, but we had to believe that nobody was going to beat us day in, day out, and that team did. That team flat out believed in themselves and believed in that guy. If I made a bad pitch, my defense is going to pick me up.
Mm-hmm.
And if I didn't execute at the plate, the next guy is going to do it. And it comes from, and that's where your teammate has that confidence in you. You make that one bad pitch and your first baseman's saying, all right, I got you in this next one. So it's developed from all around. It really is.
And I think that definitely starts at the top. I've known of teams where you have that cohesive unit and everyone has each other's back, and it's a next man up mentality. And I'm not going to sit here and be me. I'm about trying to do what I can to contribute to help a team win. And I've also coached on teams and played on teams where it takes one and you're sitting in the corner, bad mouthing this guy and, well, I'm better than him. Why am I not playing? And
Yep.
It's just like, I don't know what your role is, and I think that's definitely hard when you have personalities. You have some kids that are kind of out there, and I think that's a strength of some of the best coaches out there, because they understand their players, they understand who they are as people, and when to let them be them and when to kind of pull the reins back and be like, okay, let's kind of get back in control with who we are, and what we. So I'm not a pitching guy. I watch pitching videos. I pitched in high school. I wouldn't even say I pitched in high school. I got on the mound and threw a baseball. That was not my forte. So pitching is your forte. Is pitching completely different now when it comes to how to train kids than what you were taught as a kid?
Yeah,
Okay, so
I think it's completely different.
My comparison is this, and then I'll let you go. And well, actually, this is gonna cut off, so we're gonna go to break. But when we come back, I want to touch on the differences and how you train your kids, what you really focus in on. But like growing up, me hitting the baseball, I was taught you hit down on the baseball. You hit down on the baseball, you're gonna create back. And now it's like, no, it's all about this launch angle thing. And I'm like, well, what's a launch angle? Like, what are we talking about, the launch angle? And I think I watched this video the other day, this kid on Twitter, and they have this camera on him from all these angles, right? They have like this 360 camera, and he's throwing out of the stretch, and he has these like bands that look like stirrups that's like hooked onto his hips. And I don't know if the band is to create resistance on his front side to make sure it's a strong front side, or I'm like, I have never seen this. Like, what is going on with these bands? I was more fascinated with the cameras, because you're literally getting every single angle from behind him, from in front of him, from the catcher's point of view, from where the center fielder would be. I think training definitely has become a science. And I think a lot of players now really want to understand the why of I'm doing this drill, like what's the purpose, and not just, well, that's what I'm being told to do. I went to a coach's clinic at ASU, and someone asked, like, do your pitchers ice after games? And the guy laughed. He goes, ice does absolutely nothing for your arm. He goes, I have some kids that come in and that's what they know and that's what they want. And he goes, I give it to them because it mentally makes them feel better. But we've talked time and time again, like, ice does nothing for your arm. You getting up the next day and going out and running 3 miles does nothing for you.
Yep.
And I mean, that's how I was taught. That's what I watched high school pitchers do. That's what I watched showcase pitchers do. When you're done, put on your shoes, go down to that left field pole, and just start running poles. And when we're done, I'll let you know when you're done, and you're going to do some sit-ups and call it a day. You're good. Exactly.
That old school mentality, and that's how we all grew up playing, and that's exactly what we did. And it was a tough change for me. started off that old school mentality, and the ice, running, and just I've worked with a lot of guys. I worked with Nick Childs, who you had on the show, and he was one that really changed how I looked at a lot of things on that. And his biggest thing that I've learned, and I've seen it more so, is the old saying was pitchers aren't athletes. That was beat into us by coaches, especially at the JUCO level. You're not an athlete. Get out of the way.
Get out of the way. Don't touch the baseball. You can't catch a puck. Just get out of the way.
Yeah. Just get off the field when throw a pitch. Get out of the way. We don't want you to do anything. And his biggest thing was 100% pitchers are athletes, incorporating different moves and football type moves into his training. When he was at Northern Colorado, I had the fortune to go over there and see in their pitching practices, and everything he did was athletic throwing, and we built that into our throwing routines and into our daily work for pitchers, just making them more athletic. So that's been a huge change for me. We'll get into the ideas on the change in technology. The change in technology has changed how everything we do in baseball, but pitching specifically is been a big jump. And I had to learn on the fly and kind of catch up. Was in programs that weren't on the cutting edge, and we're nowhere near on the cutting edge. We don't have the the Rapsodos and all the cameras and everything. We try to be as good as we can using phones and things like that, breaking down. And your phone can do so much on the video side anymore, and seeing sequencing. And like you said, growing up with the pitching coaches that I had, is you're getting to your balance position and everything there, and being more controlled in your mechanics was the thing that I always remembered. You wanted to stay at balance, and there wasn't as much focus on getting off your backside in the drive and the torque that you make between hip and shoulder separation. That was nothing ever talked about. You wanted to stay more linear in every movement you were doing as a pitcher, and now you're creating more torque by basically doing the opposite of what we grew up learning. So it's just that whole sequencing and being able to see with the technology makes it so our pitchers can have an idea what their body's doing, and if they can get into those positions.
And I think that's, like I said, it's just like, to me, the whole training element, there's like so much more that goes behind the why. And I think that's why kids are obvious. I think that's why players now are more advanced than you or I may have been, because you or I may have been really good, but I couldn't tell you like some of the things I was being told to do. I don't know why I'm doing that. That's what I was told to do. So I was always taught, you don't question me, so I'm not going to question you. You tell me to do that. I guess that's going to make me better and get me to where I want to go. But I think kids now, like, they understand the purpose. But I think kids nowadays too, when you go back to the society thing, it's not an instant gratification, but I think kids nowadays want to know the payoff.
Yeah.
I think they're more intrigued with, well, why? You could tell me to go throw a med ball on my knee and take it in my backhand and throw it behind me. What's it doing? Like, what's the purpose behind it? What's it serving? So I think that's why kids are more advanced. Obviously they're training differently, but I think they actually understand the reasoning behind what they're doing.
And I think we as coaches have to be able to explain that more so than any other time as well. If you're back in the day telling a kid to do the drive line type stuff, you're like, oh, okay, just do it. And now you're like, what is this doing? Where is it helping me? And as a coach, you have to be educated on that. I remember in high school, we used surgical bands for our stretching, and now you've got the J bands, and there's so much more that we do with it. We did like 2 or 3 exercises, and I look back on that, I'm like, wow, I feel like we were ahead of the curve because we were doing that stuff in the late 90s, and now you're seeing the J bands coming out, and I'm like, oh, we did that, but now it's more specific. It's more targeted onto certain exercises, where we just got out there and tried to get loose and kind of, appease a coach. These kids you're seeing the young kids getting out there with J-bands, and it's great to see that these, the thought of taking care of your arms and everything is prominent in youth baseball and in the high school level. Every team out there gets J-bands out.
Right.
College level, seeing them every day doing that stuff, working drive lines, seeing what they're trying to do, and the technology just keeps on moving forward. It's at times as a coach, it's tough to keep up with.
Yeah, and it's just always evolving, always changing. There's always a new thought of my way, and not so much is better, but it's a new way of looking at things. Yeah, it's definitely a scientific approach, definitely a scientific method. We wanted to take a quick break to say thank you for taking a listen. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Search Just a Bit Outside Baseball Softball Podcast. So when you're talking like this evolution of training and the theories behind it, I guess one guy I always defer to, and I've mentioned him more than once on this show, I always look to Trevor Bauer. And I remember when he was coming out of UCLA, there's footage of him when UCLA was in the College World Series and they were having a long offensive inning. He would leave the dugout, mind you, it's like the 6th, 7th inning, run down to the bullpen and start throwing. And everyone's like, dude, you've already thrown for 7 innings. Like, why are you throwing? And then when he was coming out, he was big on like, this is how I train. I'm not going to move away from this. So if you draft me, just know this is what I'm going to do. And you're not going to talk me out of it. And I feel like he's a big guy on the more I use my arm, the more endurance and the stronger my arm is going to be. Now I know, like, obviously that might not be like, I'm going to throw so many pitches, but are you big on the more a kid, I know we talked about like saying there's pitch counts, but on non-pitching days, are these kids still using their arm, majority of them, to strengthen that arm? Whether it's being, I'm only going to play catch today for 30 minutes at 90 feet, or do you play catch at 90 feet for so many throws? Or like, how do you approach it? Is it a time thing? Is it a repetition thing? Or how do you go about it?
So we've kind of bought into, you're talking about with Bauer, everybody thought he was crazy when he was coming out, and he's still a little off. But his ideas of the long toss is something that we've built in to our program, getting out, and it goes along with the Jaeger program of stretching out the arm and developing and throwing, getting air underneath your throws. You watch him, and when he would warm up, he'd throw from foul pole to foul pole.
Well, yeah, some of his videos is completely stupid. Like, there's videos of him playing catch from center field to home plate.
Yeah, and we try to get our guys out there and let them air it out as much as they can to build that arm strength, because we think about that reaching out and getting that extension before we have any sort of a pull down phase in ours. We like them to get out there and throw it when they're warming up, and getting our pitchers to stretch it out before they come in, before a game, getting out and developing and letting it loose and getting air underneath the ball, and then on their way back in having some sort of a pull down. On days after, like to be able to get out and stretch it out as well. It wouldn't be to the extent they would before, just because we know the soreness, especially guys who have gone deep. Just to get some air underneath it, maybe not quite as much of a pull down. We don't put a number or a time on that normally. It's more of a feel. We trust our guys, especially at our upper level, to be able to know their arm by that point. When they're juniors, seniors, for a lot of our pitchers, we're normally in the older groups when they're with us by that point. We trust that they know their arm and know how it feels and know if they've gone long enough. We will control our younger teams more, keeping a closer eye on them, just because we've got to train them into what we're doing. And that's where we have great coaches at all of our levels who will keep an eye on guys and make sure they're doing it properly. Because, younger kids, we're still teaching at our C team. We're still teaching them basics a lot of times. Since we get kids coming in who have played, rec ball for maybe a year or two, and that's it, and they struggle even playing catch. But we try to get those fundamentals in of getting to know your arm and knowing where you can go, where you need to push it, how are you going to develop? Are you going to develop that arm strength by going, at 90 feet and throwing? No, you need to keep pushing yourself. Push yourself to get stronger with the arm. It'd be telling them the same thing in the weight room. Are you going to just sit there and, bench the bar and that's it?
So bringing up the weight room, is someone on your staff in charge of working your guys out, or do you guys at your school have like an actual weight training coach where baseball lifts together, or do they only see that if they have a PE class?
It just as a PE class. We don't have, I know in some other schools, they have that last hour where they can go to a baseball class, or I know I've talked to some coaches who have that as a baseball weights time. A friend of mine in Texas is a principal there, and we've talked about how their schedule is set up, and they have the opportunity to go to weights or be on field. We don't have that opportunity at our school. So we try to get in when we're closer to season. We'll get in and do weights. Our head coach is a PE teacher in building. So after school, he'll let the guys know, hey, off season, if you're not playing another sport, we'll have the weight room open. So he will be in there. When we're closer to beginning of season, we'll go in normally on a Saturday before practice. We'll go in and do circuits as a team. Get all old coaches out there, even working as hard as our young guys. If they see us buying in, we feel like they'll have more buy-in as well. So we try to get out there as much as we can, especially with our weather. If we have days where we can't get on the field, we'll try to get it into the weight room, build some strength even in season.
And that's what's hard too. You go back to the conversation with, obviously if you play football, you're lifting differently in football than you are for baseball. There's certain things I'm doing, I'm not doing. If I play basketball, there's certain things I'm doing and I'm not doing if I'm playing this sport. So going back to the small school thing, you have these kids that are training for different sports, so you can't just train them specifically for one sport. When I was in high school, we were fortunate to have a strength coach who was Jeff Larish, who former ASU Sun Devil.
Yep.
His dad was our strength and conditioning coach.
I played against Jeff, so I remember the name. Unfortunately, as a pitcher, I remember him very well.
So the best part about having his dad, who had a doctorate in, sports science and medical stuff, is he refused to do regular PE classes. So the only classes he taught were for the teams. And he designed every single workout specifically for each specific sport. So, baseball and softball had different workouts than basketball and volleyball. And he really broke down the body of what that body's doing in that sport. And these are the exercises that are going to help you. And I know a lot of our guys would get frustrated because they're like, oh, we're going to weights. We never lift weights. We did a lot of bands, which was new. We did a lot of bands. We did a lot of yoga. We did stretching. Everything was a compound movement. There was not one thing we did where you were just stationary. There was always a rhyme, a reason, a purpose. So we were fortunate enough to have that. But I think a lot of kids, and we had a pitcher on, Matt Olson, who's at Central, and he said, the first thing I learned was I had no idea how to work out. And he's watching all these D1 bounce backs train and work out. And he's like, oh, that's not what I do. Like, I just come in and do this, that, and the other, and I'm good. And he's like, I had to reinvent the way I trained. And he's seen the results by watching other people and changing. I think that's the hard part about coaching high school is you don't have the resources.
Yeah.
You don't have a strength coach, or you don't have the right things to get the right results.
Yeah, we've been fortunate in the last couple of years. They built a new weight room at university, and our guys love it. It's a gorgeous weight room. It's nothing big, but for the small school that we are, it's got plenty in there, and we're able to do a lot of the Olympic lifts. squats, deadlifts, getting in there benching. We've got it's a really nice setup for us, and we got in there this last season that we were able to play, and our guys put in great work. And it's got garage doors that opens up so it gets some airflow in there, and great setup for us. Where I've been at Horizon High School in Thornton, Colorado here, and they had the ability to do, you're talking about the yoga and that, and getting the flexibility aspect in, and they were able to have that. Like there was baseball yoga that they were able to go to. It was an after school program, but their coach made sure, the head coach made sure that that was available for them. And it was great because we saw the injuries going down for guys pulling up lane, running down a base. And we had the ability to have a more specific baseball weights program because we also did have those players who were just baseball players. We did have the multi-sport guys, but a lot of them were primary baseball guys.
Mm-hmm. So when we talk pitching, when we go back to pitching, like what's the hardest thing you think it is to teach a kid when it comes to pitching? Is it, obviously it's two different animals, like the skill set, and then you're not a thrower, you're a pitcher, so we have to think like a pitcher. But when you look at younger kids, is it harder to teach? Like we just got off the phone with a kid who catches in high school, and he said a lot of his times, like if I have a kid 0-2, I'm not going to call a pitch inside of the fastball because 9 times out of 10 that pitch is going to be grooved right over the middle of the plate. Like, why do you think it's so hard for kids to throw in? Just because they're just scared to hit someone? I don't want to hit someone. Like, how do you get that? How do you get them over that edge of like, look, if you throw in, you might hit someone from time to time. It is what it is.
I think that you have to set it up for when kids are throwing even bullpens, having somebody stand in there, even if they're behind a screen. It's just that built-in idea that, yeah, it's going to happen. As a pitcher myself, I was somebody who I hit more guys than I walked. And that's because I threw in and I threw a 2-seam. And you've got to be able to own both sides of the plate, because as a hitter, if you know a guy can't come inside, you're just going to set up and look away. And that's where you're just going to get your brains beat in as a pitcher. Mm-hmm. And if you can't get something on the inside half, unless you're throwing, at our level, hitting 90 is, you're not going to be touched.
Right.
But if you're a mid 80s guy, you're still going to be throwing the ball by guys at times. But if you can get down on the inside half and you can own both sides of the plate, it's going to be tough. You can get away with more fastballs. Hitters aren't comfortable in the box. I'd rather have a guy who is hitting more than he's walking, unless it's out of control, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I think it does go back to the repetition of having batters stand in, putting them behind a screen, or we've used the dummies, and having that in there. And you've got to be able to start in a bullpen, start that from day one. We go through a list in our bullpens of where we're having our catchers set up, and it's the repetition of throwing to that side and throwing inside on hitters that you have to be able to get to. You can get to that if you're a right-handed pitcher, get into that arm side away, but you still have to be able to get into the inside of the plate, or hitters will be way too comfortable in the box. And that's what I try to teach my guys is if they're comfortable, you're in trouble.
I used to play on his dad's travel team, and then I played with him in high school. But Seth Fermanic went on to Oral Roberts, and he transitioned into catching. And when he was there, when he was helping me coach one of my high school teams, he would say when he felt a player was too comfortable when they were playing, they would have a pitch that they would call that was basically just move the feet, and they wanted the pitcher to throw the ball down in just to get the guy to get out of the way of the pitch. Yeah. Now that thought's there of, I'm not, now I start to think a little bit more because that pitch came in, and I found that to be very interesting because that was the first time I heard that, even playing college baseball, that like we didn't have anything like that, not that I knew of. I mean, and I think you have to put a lot on your pitchers to be like, okay, don't hit the guy, but we're just going to throw it a little bit in and down to where he has to get out of the way of the pitch. And now I'm kind of sitting there thinking, now that thought's in my head.
Well, to me, that goes back to the aspect we talked about earlier as a coach, having confidence in your players, being able to tell that pitcher, yeah, what I'm going to call, I have confidence that you're going to be throwing that and throwing it where, or I wouldn't be calling it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that built-in confidence. And I was never somebody who was going to throw a ball by a guy at whatever level I played at. And I got away with movement and location. And if I didn't have that, I was done. If I didn't have,
Do you think at the pro level now, with as good as hitters are, if you're a dude that can't break 90, can you still have a career at that level?
it's tough. You've got to be a guy who's throwing from a different angle, something different. You look at, like, I remember watching like Pat Neshek, just something weird coming out of his hand. You got to be coming from your knuckles on the ground, coming from side, or a guy like, I remember watching Brandon Webb with the Diamondbacks when his ball would sink, and he was a guy who was not touching 90 very often,
Mm-hmm.
and had, he had success. Obviously, it's been a while, and now the game has moved into, 95 is what everybody's running out from a bullpen, 95 plus. And you've got to have something different, whether it's movement, multiple pitches, something funky. It's the game has just changed so much in the last 20 years.
And like, so when you say multiple pitches, and you obviously have guys like Mario Rivera where I could throw a fastball slider and have a career, a Hall of Fame career, and I have 2 pitches. Randy Johnson's another one. I basically lived off of 2. I had a pitching coach tell me that, I had a hitting coach tell me this one time. He said, when you come back, I don't want to hear anyone tell me this guy throws fastball, changeup, slider, curveball. And we said, well, what do you mean by that? He goes, if you tell me this guy throws fastball, changeup, slider, curveball, one of those pitches between the slider and the curveball is bad. You can't throw both very well. Do you agree with that statement for the majority? Like, if you have a kid that throws curveball, slider, one of those pitches is not that good. Like, one is a lot better than the other for the majority.
Yeah. For the majority, yeah, because it's the idea of throwing those two just by watching release, spin. They're close, but not the same. And at what point are you throwing both of them more as a slurve than you are a curveball and a slider? And you're getting around it. That slider that you miss looks more like a slurve. That curveball you miss looks more like a slurve. You got to be pretty darn good to be able to throw both of those as plus pitches, especially at a high school level or even the JUCO level. It's tough. I haven't seen many, and I talked to some of the college guys, and they'll watch and say, no, you just need to get rid of that one or work harder at the other one. You've got a plus slider. Why try to throw the curveball as well? Get better at that slider.
Mm-hmm. And I think I found it very interesting from a hitting perspective that his big thing, like, he was like, don't tell me they throw both, because they don't throw both. One is bad. One might probably just float up there. It's not going to do anything. So they throw one or they throw the other, but they do not throw both very well.
Kind of that show me pitch. Show me pitch to make the hitter think that there's that fourth pitch there, but it's not. It makes you think that's in the back of your mind.
So this is very interesting to me too. When you teach kids, like when they're, it don't matter if they're throwing out the windup or the stretch. Do you have your kids place their hand in a certain grip? Like, do you sit, like, I had a pitching coach tell me one time, like, you should set your hand to a changeup and rotate to the fastball. Because most kids growing up think, at a amateur level, think, oh, he's playing his glove, he's going to throw me something off speed. Now, once you get to college, you don't know what they're going to throw. Right. They're moving their hand all over, so I don't know, especially at a pro level, I don't know what you're going to throw. But for most high school kids, I still say most high school kids throw one pitch very well. It's going to be a fastball. That's why we won't talk hitting, but that's why I get frustrated when I watch high school kids take first pitch fastball down the middle. You're in a high school baseball game. They can throw a fastball. That's what's going to happen. And the best thing ever, because again, I will harp on this, I've had coaches call me stupid for telling kids to go up and swing at the first pitch. I'm not telling anyone to swing at a first pitch. I'm saying if I'm sitting dead red fastball and I'm teaching my kids to hunt the fastball, and that's what I get on the first pitch, and it's grooved, I'm going to swing. It happened at the bottom of the first inning the other night against the Diamondbacks and the Padres. First pitch of the game was thrown thigh high, and Tatis put it in the left center field bleachers. Like, why not? Why not swing? If you know he's going to probably start off this game with a first pitch fastball down the middle of the plate, and I'm ready, it's going to happen. And it even more frustrates me when it's the fifth inning, and we're still watching first pitch fastballs going down the middle of the plate, and we've watched the same kid now for 4 innings. Why aren't we ready?
Best pitch in baseball, strike one. And and especially at a high school level, you know that those guys, a lot of levels, they're not going to be able to throw great breaking balls, or they're not going to be able to throw strikes consistently with those.
And they don't feel comfortable throwing pitches in all counts. It's not like you're going to have – I mean, maybe there's 1 or 2 that have a pro career ahead of them or are very special. But 9 times out of 10, I would bet my paycheck that if I get a full count, a fastball is coming. They are not going to throw me an off-speed pitch. None of them have the balls to throw me an off-speed pitch because they don't feel comfortable doing it in what they have.
Yep, exactly. And, you know, as a pitching coach, as somebody who calls the pitches, you know, 95% of the time you're starting off with a fastball, unless you've got that kid that you know is hunting fastballs early in counts, and you've got to get ahead. That's the whole point. You know, when you're 0-1 in a count, you're controlling that at bat as a pitcher, and if you can get ahead, you've got that hitter on his heels to a point. And if you fall behind, you're already at a loss. You have to go back with another fastball a lot of times, and you're battling to get back in that count. If I can get ahead, I dictate that at bat.
And I think too, like when you flip it, just like I would call a pitcher's bluff, where if you got me full count, you're not going to go off speed because you don't feel comfortable or confident in your off speed pitches enough to throw it for a strike. And depending on the situation, you don't want to walk me. I also think it's hard when you're an amateur hitter in high school. A lot of kids don't feel comfortable hitting with 2 strikes. They don't. And you can sit there and be like, well, just foul off pitches. Okay, but I still don't feel comfortable. And I think a lot of kids like myself, when you're not confident in your swing at times when you get to 2 strikes, it's very hard for them to stay offensive, and they go defensive and they cut down on their swing. Now it becomes slappy because I'm so worried about having that off-speed pitch that I do get beat on fastball. Like, unless I know I have a kid that's pitching backwards and he throws off speed first to get ahead and his fastball is his out pitch, I can't be beat on fastball. So even when I get to 2 strikes, my mindset has to be fastball, or I'm going to get beat by it if I'm thinking off speed.
Yep. Yeah. You know, you don't see at the high school level kids that are confident enough a lot of times to pitch that backwards, you know, finishing with fastballs, or, you know, being able to throw that full count breaking ball. It's that mentality again that we talked about. You know, the confidence in those pitches isn't there. And if you have that confidence, you can do that. Having kids that can throw any pitch, any count is such a weapon for a coach, or hitters on the other end, hitters who don't care what count it is. They're going to go up there and, you know, hunt fastballs no matter what the count is, or be disciplined enough to see it pitches out of the zone in that full count 2 strike type approach there. So I think that's one of the best things that you can have as a pitcher who's confident enough to go up there and throw any pitch, anytime, any count. But it's hard to get that mentality.
Mm. And do you think, like, so back to my original question, because I went off on a tangent, sorry. But like, when you teach your kids, like, do you teach them to hold their hand in a certain grip, or is it whatever they feel comfortable? And if you're not digging in your glove, looking like you're mining for gold out there, at that point, step off. Like, obviously, like, you don't feel comfortable with the pitch, you can't find a grip, so you just need to step off and let's reset and refocus and take it from there.
I've never taught a kid to start with any sort of grip. I think it is a comfort thing. You know, we see so many guys who start with, you know, ball on their hip, and they've changed rules in the last while. You can't have the ball in certain spots when runners are on base, but trying to stay away from the digging, unless we see kids who do it and do it consistently. They're changing what they're doing in their glove, no matter what pitch they're throwing. Mm-hmm. If it's something that you're doing consistently, fine. But if you're somebody, it's obvious. We can read it as a coach from our pitchers, the opposing pitchers, on where they're gripping, and use that to a hitter's advantage. Seeing that a kid's starting fastball and immediately spinning to breaking ball behind his back before he comes set. You can see that movement. It's those slight movements, and that's what makes baseball such a great game for those little mind games type, where you can pick up those little things and use it to your advantage.
And do you think, like, I think one thing too, when it goes back to being an amateur pitcher, high school pitcher, youth pitcher, if you don't have a kid that can block behind the plate, like, you just lose so much confidence in your pitching.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even want to throw an off-speed pitch because you're like, well, he's not going to block it. Like,
Yep.
And then you're pigeonholed into throwing one pitch. And then, like, I mean, I've even watched that during high school games where it's like, dude, like, square up the ball. Like, you should be able to block pitches at this level. And if you're a young catcher out there listening to this, if blocking is something you don't feel comfortable with, if blocking is something you feel like you don't do very well, you will not have success in it, because no pitcher will want you behind the plate.
That's the thing, is a pitcher through all levels. I mean, in high school, we had one of the best catching coaches in the state, Ron Davini, who's a ABCA Hall of Famer. And he worked with all the catchers. So we always had a great catcher. I was lucky to have it in junior college at Northern Colorado. That's the one thing I can say as a pitcher probably helped my development more, because I could go out and throw whatever I want. I didn't have to worry about what was going to happen. We had absolute studs behind the plate, but I've been on that other end where, he's more of a fetcher than he is a catcher. And you can see those pitchers deflate, and their confidence has gone. It goes all back to that mental aspect, that mental, being mentally fragile up there when your catcher's not helping you out. So I could see that relationship between the pitcher and catcher, having the trust as a pitcher that he's going to block whatever you throw, wherever it is. You don't have to worry about the runner taking an extra base, because he's going to block it. He's going to throw that guy out.
So I don't know the kid's name, but this was, I would say, maybe 5-6 years ago. It was when Vanderbilt and Iowa won their first College World Series. It was a few years ago when Vanderbilt became like what Vanderbilt is now.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember watching games, and whoever was their catcher at that time, that kid just squared up balls and put every ball back on the plate. It was ridiculous how well he blocked pitches, and he never tried to do it with his glove. He solely squared his chest up and rounded that ball back to the plate. And I'm like, dude, this kid just puts himself in the game, whether or not he couldn't swing it or not.
Yeah.
Just the fact that he was that good of a defensive catcher, like, it was ridiculous, like, how good he was. But let me ask you this question, because I've had this debate too. Why is it, this is not a pitching question, but this is more of you're considered lazy and you don't care until you get to this level. If you're a catcher and your pitcher throws a 98-mile-an-hour fastball down in the dirt and there's no one on base, and you watch this all the time, you do not see a pro catcher try to square up a 98-mile-an-hour fastball with no one on base, because they're saying that still hurts. I mean, it's 98 miles an hour being spiked in the ground.
Right.
I'm not squaring that up for no reason. Why is it perceived as that makes sense? That's logical. I understand. I'm not trying to risk injury. But if you did that in high school, you're lazy. You don't care. And if you don't want to block pitches, then I'll just put someone else back there that will.
I think it goes back to the fact that it's the things you work on every day in practice. You're not putting into game what we do every day. It doesn't matter. The expectation is that no matter where that ball is, you're going to block it as a high school kid. You do this every day. Why are you now forgetting everything that we did? Mm-hmm. Whereas in the pro ball, he's making millions of dollars. He doesn't want to miss a game. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to miss that next check. Whereas in high school, you still, it's that something to prove type aspect. You haven't made it yet. Mm-hmm. And, catchers should never be lazy. That's the mentality. And you see it more now where their catchers are being given a little bit of a I don't want to call it a break compared to what old catchers, old catchers would squat on everything. You never saw a catcher put a knee down. They were out
Yes,
there.
I've watched so many videos lately. Of catchers just being on the one knee and they have like the leg, like the kickstand out. And I'm like, that was not a thing growing up. And obviously maybe now it is a thing with no one on base. Like I can sit on a knee and it is what it is. I'm not judging anyone that does it. I guess it's hard. Like we said, like when you grow up being taught a certain way, certain things were perceived as lazy or you don't care. And now it's just a different thought process.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to like what we've talked about, just the transition in the game from all the pitching aspect mechanically and everything. It's all changed. And we've worked with our catcher about being able to put the one knee down and giving him a break because, you may have one true catcher in your program at a varsity level. And that guy gets beat up and his knees are bad after, a full season of catching and then going to summer ball and everything. And he can't get back there. So you're trying to give him some sort of break. And I know just seeing that old school mentality where the catcher's in the traditional, squat and getting beat up as much. And, seeing those old catchers who can barely walk anymore. Right. And thinking of the new catchers, seeing guys who are more athletic, they get out there and run more. Mm-hmm. Watching pro games where catchers can, are more athletic than they used to be. They're not just the brick wall back there. Yeah. And I guess it's just trying to give them a little more life.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the same thing too. Like I remember growing up, that's when like knee savers first came out. And I think every kid had a pair of knee savers. And then when I got to high school, I had a ex-pro coach say, if I go to a game and there's a high school kid wearing knee savers, I'm not even going to watch you because you already told me you're just lazy. Like I didn't have knee savers. Like you don't need knee savers, like squat. You're fine. Don't tell me your legs hurt. If your legs hurt, go out and run more, squat more, work out your legs more, but don't tell me that your legs hurt. So I found that to be, again, every coach has their quirks.
Yeah.
But so when you talk about the state of baseball, you wanted to bring up the state of baseball. Do you think baseball's in a good place? Not with like COVID, but like one of the things we've talked about, one of the things that we've talked about in past shows is the big talk has been, there's the younger generation doesn't want to watch. Baseball's too long. Why do you think baseball is so against finding personalities? Like, I think Trevor Bauer is hilarious. The fact that Trevor Bauer is like his own animal, he's like very dry humor, but I love watching his YouTube channel because he just runs his mouth. And I'm going to say what I want to say off the cuff. And if you like it, great. If you don't, that's great too. But I think that's like what baseball needs. I think like every other professional sport has these personalities and baseball just doesn't, because it's like, well, we're a gentleman's game. That's not what you do. But you have these young guys, you have these, I don't know. I think these guys that show up and they have the flair, again, the old school thought is that's not what we do. You don't do that. I think if you're trying to attract a young generation, you have to have that flair. You have to have the personality. And no one wants to, you never see baseball guys they don't endorse anything. You always see football and basketball. And maybe it's cooler to have a basketball guy advertising a new pair of shoes. Maybe it is. And everyone's like, well, Mike Trout. That's not Mike Trout. Mike Trout is not the show me flashy guy. You need to go find
He's the old school still.
Yeah. And you have enough young dudes that like that flair and they like the attention. That would do it.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on with that. It's always been thought of that, it still has, baseball still at times has that old school mentality where that's not how we do things. That's not how things have been done forever. Why are we going to change that? But you've got these younger players. Look at Tatis Jr. The hair down to here colors, Vlad Guerrero Jr. Just these guys that are coming in at a young age, and they're not going to conform to what it's always been. Mm-hmm. And I think that the younger generations, like my son will sit down and watch a couple innings of a baseball game. He's 9 years old. Mm-hmm. And like you're talking about, it is hard for them to sit down and watch it, but he'll want to go watch Francisco Lindor. got the flair and everything.
He'll want to go on. He'll want to go onto YouTube and watch a 3-minute video of a highlight reel.
Yeah,
You know,
and see what
that.
these guys are doing. Yeah.
The only time I watch a full baseball game is when baseball comes down to like the playoffs. Besides that, I'm like everyone else in the middle of July on a Wednesday night. I might watch a couple pitches. I might watch a couple innings. I'm not watching a 3.5-hour baseball game till 11:30 at night to see if the Diamondbacks can pull one off against the Rockies.
Yeah, you'll sit there and get the highlights.
So
yeah, watching Robbie Ray throw 3 1/3 innings with 90 pitches.
Yeah. The Diamondback don't even okay. So 2 teams that I try to support and love is my family. I'm the only one from my family not born in Pennsylvania. So everyone in my family is a Pirates fan. I'm a Pirates fan. Everyone that's good is going to be let go at some point. So you kind of got to get used to that. Anyone that's good is going to leave. And you're kind of like a Cubs situation where you're a lovable loser. And then I had the Diamondbacks where before I was like, oh, I'm not a Diamondback fan. And now I've started to get like on this Diamondbacks train the past couple of years. And I really think they have a good lineup. They have a young lineup. They have a good lineup. They have parts to be really good. I think Torey Lovello brings a lot out of his players. I like his mentality of coaching. And I feel like when you watch them, they're a little bit different breed than a normal pro team because I feel like they are scrappy. I don't feel like they're not a Yankees, Dodgers built lineup to where they're not going to rely on everyone being able to bang the ball. So they have to piece together innings. So to me, that's a little bit more exciting. But like every year, it's like you look good, but it's either like the offense is on and the pitching staff sucks altogether. Or it's the offense is on, the starting pitching is good, turn over to the bullpen, we can't save a game for our life. Or vice versa, the pitching's good and the offense is off, but right now it's like nothing's clicking. There is not one thing clicking. You can't hit the baseball. Pitchers can't get out of the 3rd inning, and you're a starter, and your bullpen's overworked. And like they were talking about on the radio the other day, like if they don't start winning, like basically the season's over. So it's 60 games. Like you don't have enough time to figure it out. Like it needed to be figured out like now. 2 weeks ago needed to be figured out.
Yeah, I grew up an Indians fan. My dad's from outside of Cleveland, so we went to spring training games all the time, seeing the Indians, and obviously that was rough for a long while, and then it got good, and then it went right back to being rough again. And
well, that's just like the dude from the Indians the other night. He got sent home because after they got done playing the White Sox, well, I'm gonna go out.
Two of them got sent home. Clevenger got sent home as well.
Like why? What was so important that you had to go do? Like, what did you have to, like, when you know the rules, like, you're being told to go to the ballpark and you go to the hotel. Like, that's all you can do. To me, that's just like, well, I'm going to still do what I want.
It kind of goes back to that entitlement. You can't tell me what I'm going to do, basically. Like you said, I'm going to do what I want. That entitlement to, I make millions of dollars. You can't tell me what I'm going to do. Yeah. So you can see in other sports, they're at least, abiding by it. Basketball, hockey, or they're getting through on theirs, and it's just it's tough to watch sometimes. And seeing. Do you think baseball will make it through 60 games, or do you think it will Well, this is the thing I don't get either. We're gonna have to do another episode because I want to keep this conversation going, if that's cool with my brother, because I don't want to end this. Like, how are some teams just like, well, we're not gonna play today? Okay, but all the rest of the teams are. So now they're talking about just going over overall wins. And it's like, okay, well, you didn't play 10 games. So, like, obviously the odds are in your favor. You didn't play 10 of them. So. Yeah, I don't – they're going to look at win percentage and is what they were saying. That makes no sense. You've got – how many games have the Cardinals missed now? But like, who's making the decision that's saying we're not playing today? Is that the teams? Is that the owners? Because it's not Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball isn't saying, well, the Cardinals aren't going to play the Brewers today, but – the Diamondbacks and the Rockies do have to play tonight. Is it more guys just popping positive on testing? Like they just keep on drawing it out or what? It's just, it makes no sense. It's very, I don't know. I think, but unlike everyone else, you can't put baseball inside of a bubble. And that's why football is not going to happen. Like, I do not think there's no way. There's no way. I mean, you already had the Big Ten today and the Pac-12 said we're pushing football to the spring.
But what no one's talking about yet is if you push football to the spring, you basically said, I'm not playing basketball either.
Yeah. Well, the Pac-12 said they're not doing any sports till after New Year's, from what I understand.
And
So
how
that
that,
pushes.
like, and then, but then you're gonna have all those kids traveling then. Like you have baseball going on, softball going on, football is gonna be happening, like basketball is gonna be happening. And as much as NCAA doesn't want to say it, if basketball and football don't happen, you have no money.
Yep. Baseball's not a revenue sport.
We wanted to take a quick break to say thank you for taking a listen. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Search Just a Bit Outside Baseball Softball Podcast.
So this is an interesting topic right now too. Do you think, where are you at with college players getting paid?
I'm up in the air with it, really. I don't know what to think of it because you always were told, that takes away your amateur status.
Right.
But I also know the struggle that these guys face is, if you're not at these big schools, you're at the small schools and you're struggling to get by. I know I struggled to get by when I was in college and, having to rely on family and all that. So I see that kind of the positives that guys are able to take care of themselves just on a feeding themselves at times. Does that take away scholarships and money wise because they're getting that? And does it take away that they're budgeting for the schools?
So this is where I'm at with it. Like, I agree with the thought of like, you're making money off me. Yeah. You had the video game, you have jersey sales, people are making money. The NCAA is making money. The school's making money. Someone's making money. The players aren't. So I understand the mentality of you should pay me, but especially when you're making money off of my name, my ability, I'm the one selling tickets. But my thing is, like you just said, well, what if you're at a smaller school? What if you're not at a school where the football program is not that big? Like, what if you're at a Montana or a Wyoming? How is it going to play out that so you're going to agree to pay? Is it a school thing? Like the school is going to pay these guys, or is the conference going to pay these guys? And if I play in this conference and this conference is making more, like, well, why is that conference making more? But my thing
should be like a flat revenue sharing across the board.
But then I think the other issue is what you're going to get into is you're going to have all these players that saying, we stand with each other, we're equality. Okay, all that's great, all that's good. So you're going to pay the same amount of a kid that runs cross country as the same amount as your star quarterback? Probably not.
It's probably that's kind of that catch-22.
But then, like, if you talked about players manipulating the system right now, okay, you have people. Reggie Bush gets his Heisman pull because USC, put his family up in a house and moved him from San Diego and everything else. Do you not think you've opened up a playground to people that have money and more boosters? And now you're basically going to have a bidding war off of your 5-star recruits in basketball and football being like, well, I can give you this much money. Well, I'm going to give you this much money. And I'll give you this much money on top of, I'll get your mom living out of her 1-bedroom studio apartment and I'll put her up in this nice 5-bedroom house.
Like, that Pandora's box.
Yeah, but
where does it stop?
And that's the best part is, like, you've basically said, okay, all these NCAA guidelines now are out the window. So are you still going to be like, well, you can't do that? Well, why? You're paying them, so why not put mom up in a house? Why not buy dad a brand new car?
Yeah, it is. It's like that It's a Pandora's box. When you open it up, how far are things going to go for those top guys, and the bottom guys aren't going to see anything. Those lower level guys aren't going to see that. It's just, how do you regulate? How do you regulate it?
Yeah, and I used to go back to, like, you're not going to be able to pay a kid who is a swimmer or a gymnast or a tennis player the same amount of money that you're going to be playing a kid that plays basketball or a kid that plays football. Same thing with baseball.
List it out. Do you list it out like X sport gets X amount of money? or what? That's, because of revenue, and then it would be X sport and X school gets this much money, and the Pac-12 gets this much. When you're in the Mountain West, you get this much. It's that tiered system, and it will just kind of be that, the inequality where those lower guys are going to get, here's $5. Thanks for showing up this year.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, like, I guess like my thing is, if you're looking for money to make sure you have a meal every single night, I agree with that.
Yeah.
If you are looking for me to pay a housing allowance, I 100% agree with that, because I'm sure it's a lot on parents to be like, I can't pay on my home, try to put you in in some sort of apartment. Have you watched the new season of that Last Chance U?
I haven't yet.
So the thing that blew my mind, I won't be the spoiler alert, but the thing that blew my mind is there's kids, I guess in California, and you play JUCO, they can't offer you any type of aid at all. Yeah. So these kids are solely there on their own money. And there's a kid on the show that literally lives in his car because he can't afford a place to live. And they said the average rent in Oakland is about $3,000 a month. So these kids are basically coming from nothing. I don't want to insult their life, but some of these kids you could tell come from a pretty rough upbringing. And you are so hell-bent on, I want to play in the NFL, that I'm going to go to Oakland, California. Some of them are born and raised, but there's one kid on the show that said he commutes 2 hours a day because he had to move out of the city because his family couldn't afford rent anymore. So you're traveling 2 hours to school, 2 hours home. I don't know. Like, so if you're saying I want food and I want housing covered, I 100% agree with that.
I do as well. I feel like that there should be some way that these schools can control that, where that money is going. If that's for room and board to get those kids in a better situation, I'm all for that. Get those kids the opportunity they need to get the education and all that. Being at Yavapai, we had dorms, we had, a cafeteria that we could go to. And there were kids that I played with that's exactly what it was. It was a better opportunity for them to get out of where they were. And the school had a chance to pay for those things. At that time, they were allowed to basically pay whatever they needed to get them there. But if it's, getting a kid out of a situation that or helping his family at that, at that point, getting him, one less mouth to feed for that family. If that's the problem, I'm all for that. Get him in, get him an opportunity. That is 100%, but it's just going to take somebody at that school who can control where those monies are going.
Right. And I think too, like, here's my fear is college is already expensive. Like, you're going into a lifelong debt.
Yep.
And it's sad that we as a society are putting our own people in debt financially the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And you can't even find a job now where, well, to apply for this, you have to have a bachelor's. And now sometimes a bachelor's is not even good enough. You have to have a master's. And it's really not you need it, not that you can't do the job. I just want to see that you have it under your belt.
Yeah.
And my fear is you're going to start paying these athletes. And if you're paying them more than food and board, and they want an actual paycheck, I want a payday right now because I'm making money. And you are going to run out of booster money, or the boosters will be like, well, I can't afford to pay the baseball program, the basketball program, the girls basketball program, football, softball. Like, if I'm a booster, I'm not paying for the swimming program. I'll pay for football because I already do. But my fear is if they put a high dollar amount on how much I want, whether it's a salary or monthly or semester, however you want to work it, that money now is going to be brought in through tuition of the average person that's trying to get an education. Yep. And you're going to be paying even more money to put money into someone else's pocket because it's not going to come out of the school's money. They're not going to lose money on it.
Yep.
And that's my fear, is that education is already so much that exactly. People are opting not to. Like, I would rather, I'm not knocking anyone that works at McDonald's, but like, would you rather work at McDonald's or go into a lifetime thing of debt and still work at McDonald's and make enough money to barely pay your bills and not enough money to make your student loans.
Yeah, and, you know, being in education, you see all those people who are already getting the masters and everything, and it makes it so it's tough. And being a coach who, you know, you want to get a master's in coaching, and it doesn't in the long term it's expensive, and you know, college is great. It's a great experience for an athlete to be there and being able to play the sport that we love and want to be there. And if you're not baseball scholarships are small. There's not a lot of them out there, you know, per school, and you're still gonna have to wind up paying something for it out of pocket.
And I think, I don't know. I think, so like I said, like the idea of student athletes should be paid, I agree with it if it's food and housing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking to have a professional salary, I think you're even going to dig yourself a bigger hole, because like I said, are you doing it's straight across the board? Are you doing it per conference? And the other part about this is, not only are you going to tax the average student to bring in this money, but like I said, I think you're just going to bring in like a big old bidding war.
Yeah.
And then you're going to, I mean, you already see it and it's looked down upon, and people don't want to admit that it goes on, but it goes on.
Yep.
You know, you have AAU coaches that make a living off of getting kids into big colleges, and I'll get some money underneath the table. It happens. It's been happening. It's going to happen. And now it's like you're opening the door to have it happen right out in the open. So who has the most money to throw at my family?
Exactly.
So like, if you're the student athlete now, like, what do you think your best advice would be? Go where there's because you have some kids that are like, I'm going to go where there's an opportunity, any opportunity. But like the kid that we talked to earlier, his thing was, I want an opportunity, but it really comes down to who's giving me the best amount of money will sway my decision.
Wow, that's tough. I honestly think it's go where the best opportunity is. We know, being a junior college product, I'm a huge advocate for the junior college programs. You know, you see so many guys who, I'm going Division I, I'm going Division I. That's all I'm thinking about. You know, they miss out on an opportunity that's right in front of them to get better, and seeing the levels of competition that are at the junior college level. You know, the Arizona programs it's unreal baseball. It's as good as anything out there. And having the opportunity to play that freshman year and not sit and watch the upperclassmen play, unless you're, you know, a potential draft pick guy who's a stud, possibly going to those bigger programs, even though you can't get drafted immediately. You're going to watch a lot of baseball. Mm-hmm. And having the opportunity to play is, I think, the biggest thing that I try to talk to my guys about. You know, so many people want to discredit to a point playing junior college baseball because, it's a junior college. You know, it's not a bigger school, but you get that chance to develop. And I know that if I wouldn't have had that chance to develop, I wouldn't have played beyond. I couldn't have gone to a 4-year school and played immediately.
Do you think, outside of baseball, because I think baseball you could play at any level, and if you're good, you're going to be found. Mm-hmm. I feel like football and basketball is a little bit different in that, to where I feel like some of these kids that play junior college football, maybe it was because you played around in the classroom and you don't have the grades in high school and you didn't take it seriously. But I feel like when it comes to football, if you were a Division I athlete coming out of high school, you would have had Division I offers until it got to the point where it was, I can't get you into this school at all. You know, so I think it's kind of interesting when you watch shows like Last Chance U, and all these guys are like, I want to make it to the league. I want to make it to the league, but I'm not going to go play Division II. Okay, well, you have no Division I offers. So, like, obviously that's telling you something. If there's not one school in this country that has sat down and said, let's have a conversation, obviously you're not a Division I player, and you
Yeah.
have to look at something else. So, like I said, I think you could be, I mean, the major leagues are filled with guys that did not play Division I baseball. And I think,
Yep.
I mean, obviously we've talked in the past with other people on the show that because that's what most of these guys see is the College World Series. I see Vanderbilt, I see Florida, I see LSU. If I don't go there, I haven't achieved anything. But that's so far from the truth. I played at Phoenix College, and I played against guys that were a handful of draft picks coming out of high school, and they just wanted more money. So I'll go play JUCO for a year, get redrafted,
Get drafted again.
if I can get more stock out of it, you know.
Yeah, my JUCO years was loaded with guys who were drafted in, you know, out of JUCO that's when they did the draft and follow even.
Mhm.
And we had guys on on Yavapai who were draft and follow guys. They just wanted them to have a year of maturity. And, you know, that, you know, 19, 20, you know, age is such a maturing age for guys. And you can see where they're developing more, and they have that opportunity to get drafted. You know, they get bigger, get stronger, see better pitching, better hitters as a pitcher, and then they come back out and they're like, okay, you've got something there, or they'll have that opportunity to move on to, you know, whatever level it is after the JUCO. But there's that opportunity to play, and that it's unreal to see the baseball in the junior college level. I don't think a lot of people understand how good junior college baseball is, you know, because it's not on TV.
I think it's the lack of a better word, the sexiness behind Division I. I get to play on the big stage. I get a lot of free, cool apparel. I get 5 jerseys. Shoot, when I played at Phoenix College, Saturday nights, we had to go to Sun Devil Stadium and work concessions or work security to fundraise for everyone to get a pair of cleats and a home and away jersey. Like, that was my junior college baseball career at Phoenix College. So, yeah, like, maybe there's some programs that are better off, but there's really nothing – there's nothing attractive about it. Like, I live in Coolidge, Arizona. Central Junior College is literally 5 minutes away from my house. And I always said, if you convince kids to come to Coolidge, Arizona, like, you are one hell of a recruiter, because there's nothing attractive about coming to Coolidge. I mean, you can find some things to do. You're about 45 minutes away from Casa Grande, 45 minutes away from Queen Creek and Chandler. So you're not like out in the boonies, but there's nothing to do. I mean, you're literally going to be going to school and playing baseball. That is what you're doing. And we have a Walmart, and we have a Safeway and a McDonald's. That is basically it.
You're there to play baseball. It's bare bones. That's what you got to love about JUCO is you're there to play baseball and get better and have that opportunity to better yourself. Those, you know, the kids who don't want to give up on their dream and have an opportunity to better themselves in that sport and keep going. You know, I was told I would never play baseball in college. I had a coach come out and say that to a team, that there was nobody on a team that was good enough to play beyond high school baseball. And my best friend and I both basically took that upon ourselves, that we were bound and determined. And we both wound up playing JUCO, and then we both wound up at the Division I level eventually. And we still look back on that to this day as motivation for us. You know, that saying we couldn't do this and we're going to work our butts off to do it. But we were just, you know, those field rat type kids who couldn't get enough. And I feel like a lot of JUCO guys just can't get enough baseball. You've seen it, how there's no sexiness to the junior college baseball. And it's a grind. It's a grind. You're playing, you know, the fall baseball, you're playing games all fall. It's practices, long days, being out in Arizona, it's hot days. You got to love it. You got to love it. And that really separates it, because you'll see those kids who go there and wash out. They just can't do it. They don't have that passion for it.
Well, too, and and I think too, like when you go to, you know, the junior college route, those schools don't have tutors for you. So like when you go on the road, I mean, you're not playing like a series, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday anywhere, but you're going to play a double header. That's a 3.5 hour bus ride away. And maybe you have like assignments due. I don't have a tutor to hold your hand. I think there's a benefit to going the JUCO route because I feel like it forces kids to grow up and mature a lot quicker than some of these kids that go D1, because there you do have the accessibility for someone to kind of hold your hand through the process of, well, it's on us to take care of you. It's on us to make sure you get to class. You know,
And you've got to grow up and be a man on the junior college level. You've got to take that responsibility, getting up every day, getting out of bed, getting something to eat, taking care of yourself. It's not somebody there to do everything for you.
Mhm.
And it is a maturing process. You have to be able to do that day in, day out, taking care of your body, because you're getting beat up with that many games and figuring out what works for you and what doesn't. Mom and dad aren't there anymore. They're not there to fix your meals for you and wash your clothes for you and do all that. You've got to be able to do that yourself.
Yeah. And I think like here, I think because Arizona has so many JUCOs that, I mean, you have a lot of kids that come from out of state to play, but for some of those kids, like, it does save them money. It saves on room and board, because even if I live in Gilbert, but I'm going to South Mountain, that's like a 30-minute drive. Like, I could still live at home. And some kids like that comfort. It saves on money, but I mean, you're still getting quality baseball.
Yep.
And I mean, I will say this time and time again, when I was at Phoenix College, Coach Doyle was at Chandler Gilbert, and playing Chandler Gilbert at the time was basically playing every dude that Pat Murphy recruited and basically redshirted, and was like, I don't want you to lose a year, so go to Chandler Gilbert, and when I'm ready for you, I'll kind of call you back up. It was kind of like ASU's farm system, along with they're pulling in guys that were drafted out of high school, but I just need more money, so I'll go play JUCO for a year. So
Central Arizona was similar when I was playing Central, and Chandler Gilbert was a new program when I was playing. And they were guys who were the same way. They would run out teams that would rival any of the big schools. And those guys were gone in another year or two.
Yeah, it's the thought process is kind of crazy. And I think that's where like parents and players need to do their due diligence with talking to guys, learning about their experiences, and just like really educating themselves. I think a lot of parents get caught up in the moment, and I think when kids go on recruiting trips, they don't ask the right questions. They forget to ask certain questions, and they need to keep in mind, like, you're hearing the same story I told 6 other kids.
Yep.
Like, I will make sure that you are the belle of the ball, but when you get here and your mom and dad's gone, like, it's going to be a different story.
It's a dogfight at that point.
Yeah. And and I think like everyone says, I don't have a certain type of kid that I go after. I think some coaches do have a certain type of kid that they go after, because they want to make sure I have a kid that's mentally ready for what I'm going to put them through. And when you're 18 years old and you've never lived on your own or done anything on your own, and every team you've played with, mom or dad has had the finances and the opportunity to come with you, you've never been in a hotel room by yourself. You've never had to set an alarm clock. You've never had to set an alarm on your phone to get up, get dressed, get out the door. The other day,
I remember those.
I was going to say, the other day when I was listening to sports radio here, DeAndre Ayton for the Suns, he missed his COVID test.
Yep, I saw that.
How do you miss your COVID test? You literally are in a hotel. Like, that's like, and it's your job. And someone goes, well, maybe that's someone within the Suns or organization's fault. What are you talking about? This is a grown man getting paid millions of dollars to play a sport. That is your job, to show up to get your COVID test. Like, no one needs to go knock on your hotel room door and say, okay, it's time.
Let's go. Yep.
Like, I don't know. I think there's certain things that are like excuses. And as much as we preach to our players, like, don't make excuses, be accountable, I think it's hard for them to understand that when you see situations like that are out in the public. Well, it's like, well, he did it.
Yep. Guys getting busted for things, and there's no responsibility. Oh, we're sorry. And that's it.
Well, Coach, to wrap this up, my last question is, do you think you're going to see high school baseball this year with COVID? Like, do you even think your kids are going to be going back to school? Like, when do you – we've already started school. We're already in week 4 here in Arizona, because my school's all year round. And they're talking about we're online. We're not in person. But I have 28 kids in a Google Meet every day from 8:45 to 3:30 in the afternoon.
Wow.
And it's a battle. It's a struggle.
So I'm in the elementary level. right now.
Mhm.
And
I teach fourth grade, so it's a struggle to do 6.5 hours.
I've got a fourth grader. I've got a fourth grader here. And so today was actually my first day reporting back. We start school on Monday. As of right now, we're in person. Districts out here.
Did your kids have the option to go online, or everybody's
Yes.
in person?
They have the option to go online. We're small elementary. We have 100 and something kids who have opted into online. One grade level teacher is teaching online per grade. So, my thought is we're going to all be online at some point. My wife's an administrator in a different district, and they're in person as well. Now, my son had to switch schools because his school locally went to AM and PM half days.
AM and PM?
Yeah, they would have split cohorts.
So, like, what time would the PM class start and go till what time?
So the AM it was 8:30 to 11:30, PM 12:30 to 3:30.
Okay.
So he would be home for 5 hours by himself, and I just can't do that to a 9-year-old, obviously.
Yeah.
But a lot of schools on here are fully online. We're preparing to be in person. Our hope is to be in person. Our hope is that this all settles down. Arizona is much more of a hot spot than Colorado is right now. We missed out on one season. They've pushed our season back to May 26th.
Mm-hmm.
Would be first official start for us, and we'd be done late June. Football's been pushed back to February. Everything's been pushed.
Okay. See, right now, like schools here for football, they're hoping to start September, October. And I'm sitting there thinking, if you're not saying it's safe for them to actually be in person to go to school, how are you going to have these kids tackling each other?
Yeah.
And
it's crazy.
I really do feel bad because you do have a lot of kids that are missing out. I feel bad for the kids that were seniors this year. I feel bad for the kids that are seniors last year. I feel just bad for like the student in general, because these kids are missing out on opportunities that they're not going to get back.
Yeah. We didn't even get a single game last year. We were moving towards, we got our scrimmage in and didn't even get a single game. I know you guys start earlier than us out in Arizona. And so my seniors didn't get to play a single game. My fingers are crossed. I'm hopeful that we've just got to be able to get through, but I'm realistic as well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and it's gonna be a stretch to get anything in. I feel, but they've pushed it off far enough that hopefully we can. It scares me. I miss being on the field. I miss being on the field with my guys. That's the toughest thing as a coach, and that you know how it is. You spend more time with those guys than you do your family during the season, and I miss being out there with them.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. It's been hard on everyone. So, Coach, best of luck. I enjoyed meeting you. Come back anytime.
Yes, thank you.
I obviously, like I said, long-winded. We could talk baseball and all different types of topics for hours, but thank you for your time. I hope you stay safe when you go back to school. Your class stays safe, and I hope your family personally stays safe.
Thanks. I appreciate it. You guys stay safe as well. Hopefully we're back at it.
Yeah. So if you guys get to play high school baseball, come back on. I would love to hear about your guys' season and all that.
Definitely. So, sounds great.
Coach, take care.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.
All right. That's going to wrap up today's show, guys. Thank you again for watching, listening, and following us. But before we go, I'm going to kick it to my brother who records the show to get his thoughts on this episode specifically. Bill, what'd you think?
I thought it was awesome. Definitely being a amateur baseball coach, I learned a lot. I think it's really good to learn about the why behind the what, so that that our parents and everything know, like, why are we working on these specific things during practice. But I really liked it.
I think that's like one of the biggest things that we told you guys from the beginning is that was the purpose of our show, was to educate, to get insight. I'm learning things about this show. I think our guests are learning things. My brother's learning things. If you listen, you've probably picked up on things. Every day, guys, it's a new journey. It's a new battle. You learn information. It's how you take it. It's how you implement it and use it in your own game and into your personal life. So once again, this is Just a Bit Outside Baseball Softball Podcast. I'm Bill. That's Ray. I'm not Bill. That's Bill. I am Ray.
That serves you right for earlier not telling me that you were actually giving the interview. I'm just looking at you like, dur, dur, dur. We're going to start the show. So turn around, fair play. I'm Bill. He's Raymond. And you have been watching and listening to Just Outside Baseball Softball Podcast. Check us out on SoundCloud and on YouTube, and we'll see you all next week. How was that?
And before we go, just a bit outside Baseball Softball Podcast. See, we both messed up. It was an error, but we'll live another day. We'll have another show, just like you'll have another AB. You'll have another chance. So catch you guys next time. Peace.
Later.